Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the, honestly, fascinating ways we navigate our relationships. Because whether we're talking about our marriages, our families, our friendships, or even just, everyday interactions at the grocery store, we all have these automatic mechanisms running in the background. We're pulling insights directly from a recent somatic orienting framework, or SOF, group therapy journey, to really explore the architecture of human connection. The group's closing meeting brought up some incredibly profound themes about how we survive relationally, and more importantly, how we can move past just surviving into genuine intimacy. But before we really get into the weeds here, I want you to ask yourself this super relatable question. When conflict strikes, do you fight or flatter? Because recognizing our automatic reactions is literally step one to unlocking genuine connection. We all have a go-to move when the temperature in a room suddenly spikes, right? Maybe your jaw clenches and you're instantly ready for battle, or maybe you suddenly feel this overwhelming urge to just smooth everything over, even at your own expense. Hold on to whatever your answer is, because it is the key to everything we're about to cover. Section 1. Our relational survival patterns. So let's look at what actually happens in those tense moments when our brain senses a threat to our safety, or even a threat to our sense of belonging. In these situations, we almost always default to one of two main survival movements. On one side, we've got resistance. This is when we throw up a wall. It looks like defensiveness, firmly digging our heels in, or just really wanting reality to be something other than what it is. Then, on the flip side, we have fawning. This is where we over-attune to others. We over-adapt. We try way too hard to be liked or accepted, and in the process, we completely lose connection to our own selves. The SOF group insights showed that these two reactions, pushing back hard against reality or totally abandoning our own needs to keep the peace, are actually completely automatic relational survival patterns. Actually, let's pause on fawning for a second because it's incredibly common but hardly ever talked about. Fawning is that automatic response of over-adapting or over-pleasing. See, putting up walls of resistance is super easy to spot, right? Someone is clearly arguing or completely shutting down. But fawning? Fawning is a much sneakier psychological pattern. We overplease because, at our core, we are secretly terrified of losing our connection to someone. It is entirely rooted in a really deep fear of rejection, conflict, or abandonment. Moving on to Section 2, the fear beneath the surface. Now, what's fascinating is when we treat these behaviors kind of like an iceberg and look at what is actually hiding underwater. Step 1 is that surface reactivity. It looks like pure anger or defensiveness. But as the SOF exploration revealed, if we peel back those emotional layers to step 2, we find a much deeper vulnerability. Anger almost always covers a quieter, much heavier sense of helplessness or grief. And finally, if we go all the way down to step 3, the root cause is almost always just a fear of disconnection. Whether you're resisting or fawning, the underlying driver is exactly the same. It's a longing for safety, connection, and belonging. They're just two different sides of the exact same survival movement. Have you ever been in a situation where you start out defending yourself and then suddenly, bam, it all just collapses inward? The group touched on these exact moments where resistance quickly turns into self-blame, resulting in a really heavy emotional cycle that was summarized perfectly as, everything becomes my fault. It's this painful, sudden collapse where standing your ground just completely falters. And when that collapse happens, three absolute heavyweights rush in to fill the void: guilt, blame, and shame. These often step right in when our survival patterns fail us or somehow twist back around on us. They're deeply connected relational themes that show us just how intertwined our fears really are. It's a cycle that traps us, basically keeping us far away from the genuine intimacy we actually crave. So the million-dollar question is, how do we break these automatic patterns? If resistance and fawning are so deeply hardwired into us, how do we actually stop the cycle? Which brings us to Section 3, experiencing the felt sense. The biggest insight from the source material here is that we absolutely cannot just intellectualize these ideas. You can't just think your way out of a survival pattern. It doesn't work. Instead, we have to move from the intellectual to the physical. We have to use what's called the felt sense as our bodily compass. Basically, we gotta get out of our heads and actually start noticing our bodily reactions experientially, exactly as they are happening in real time. So, what does that actually look like in practice? Well, tracking the physical shifts means actively noticing emotional changes. It means literally sensing the distance or that sudden longing for connection inside your body. It means feeling a physical contraction, like maybe your chest tightens up or your stomach just drops when you feel threatened. And conversely, it means experiencing the softening and movement between those positions. By slowing down and really tuning into these physical sensations, you can catch your survival pattern, whether it's the sudden urge to yell or the urge to fawn, before it completely takes over the steering wheel. This is incredibly powerful on an individual level, but let's zoom out a bit to see how it applies collectively. Section 4. Navigating Polarized Realities. We can really see how these deeply personal insights apply to the larger, highly polarized collective realities we're all facing today. The challenge of our times isn't necessarily about finding perfect political or social agreement. As we can see here, the standard reaction is to just disappear into reactivity, completely identifying with fear and defensiveness and demanding that the other person agrees with you. But compare that to the SOF approach. This is about staying present with different experiences. It's using the SOF map in the felt sense to recognize your own reactions without becoming fully identified by them. Ultimately, it's about remaining human and finding connection without requiring total agreement. Instead of just disappearing into pure reactivity, you stay grounded. And this brings us to a really profound, beautiful reframe about how we view our own discomfort. Section 5. Triggers as a gateway. Here is a reframe that is honestly a total game changer. Every single trigger, discomfort, resistance, or contraction is a gateway. It is an opportunity for new possibilities, deeper self-understanding, and a much more conscious connection. Think about that for a second. Instead of seeing a moment of tension or a fawning response as a personal failure or some sort of flaw, you can recognize it as an open door pointing directly toward growth. The discomfort is quite literally the map showing you where the work is. So, what is our actual path forward? Based on the group's journey, the steps are beautifully simple, though, not always easy. First off, you gotta stop trying to fix yourself. You aren't broken just because you have survival patterns. Second, stay present with what is happening in the moment. Third, sense it directly in your body. Really use that felt sense we just talked about. And fourth, discover what might want to emerge through it. You do not need to surgically remove your reactions. You just need to stay present, feel them in your physical body, and allow new, much healthier ways of relating to organically emerge. I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative question to carry into your everyday life. In your very next moment of discomfort, will you react automatically, or will you stay present and see what emerges? Because the architecture of human connection isn't built on being perfect. It's built on awareness. The next time you feel the urge to throw up a wall or completely abandon yourself just to keep the peace, remember, you have a choice. You can use your triggers not as weapons, but as literal gateways to deeper connection. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly, highly encourage you to take these concepts and literally start feeling them out in the real world. Keep learning, keep sensing, and I'll catch you on the next one.